Alrighty, well, our first story for the night is from lifenews.com. So this is actually an old article, but it kind of recently resurfaced. So I'm going to kind of just give the snippets. This is about Taylor Swift and her abortion views as a Christian. So, in a new Netflix documentary, not new anymore, about her life, Miss Americana, Swift insisted that she is a Christian, even though she promotes politically causes that go against Christian teachings, CBN News reports. One clip from the film shows Swift trying to explain what led her to speak out on her political beliefs, particularly her endorsement of Democrat Phil Bredesen in the 2018 Senate race against pro-life Republican Marsha Blackburn. Quote, it's really basic human rights, and it's right and wrong at this point, and I can't see another commercial and see Marsha Blackburn discussing these policies behind the words Tennessee Christian values, she said in the Netflix special. Those aren't Tennessee Christian values. I live in Tennessee. I'm a Christian. That's not what we stand for. So that's the quick context here to give us some idea of where Taylor Swift falls on the abortion argument. So, Steve, we'll go ahead and start with you as our guest. But what was your initial reaction to this old quote of Taylor resurfacing?
Yeah, she's entitled to her opinion, and she is born in Tennessee, and that's okay. All those things are true, but I think she misinterprets the Bible if she thinks that she is a Christian. Anyone can be born into Christianity. They can go to church on Sunday. They can say they believe in God. They believe in Jesus, who is the life and the way, but she's not acting the act if she's going to be an influencer and tell young people that murder is okay, that the death of the unborn is okay. So she's a little off there. The tragedy, of course, is she's using it as a political fodder against, say, Marsha Blackburn, who won, thankfully. I'm a fan. And, she's not the only one. We just had the Super Bowl, and there was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out there saying that using Jesus as fascism. They're just misinterpreting, misunderstanding the Bible, or using it for their political benefits and talking points. And it's gross. It's evil. Taylor Swift is a very cute woman. She's talented singer-songwriter. She should stay out of the theological lane, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, Michael, how about you? What was your initial thought?
I think what Steve has to say is right on point. It's not that Taylor's an evil, horrible person necessarily. I think some of the things that she supports are evil and nefarious in nature. But the main issue behind what she's saying is that she is a poor representation of what Christianity is. If we want to take a representative from the Orthodox tradition, be it Catholic or Eastern or even an evangelical that's biblically minded in any sense, I think there's a big difference between cultural Christianity, like what Steve was saying, of individuals who go to church on Sundays and call themselves Christians because they have the Hobby Lobby poster on their wall. That doesn't exactly make one a Christian, as much as biblical literacy and acting upon a Christian ethic would also more convincingly make someone a Christian. And it doesn't seem like Taylor Swift has a lot of evidence to show her biblical competency or her Christian ethic.
What?
Shocking, I know.
Yeah. Well, Joey, what was your initial take?
Well, it didn't really surprise me, to be quite honest with you. And I actually would take my take on it would be is this statement from Taylor doesn't concern me so much as people within the larger evangelical sect putting their approval on abortion. Because I would say most people probably aren't looking to her for theological advice. I mean, unless maybe you're a girl between the ages of 12 and 25, but that was my thought.
I want to push back a little bit, though, because the individuals that Taylor's influencing theologically are those that have no other source of theological education.
That's valid.
Her audiences are going to be those young girls who maybe also were raised up in a lukewarm Christian environment, which meant they went to church on Easter and Christmas and had a dusty Bible on the shelf. And then they hear her say that, and it validates certain arguments of a political leaning, and it validates those individuals to say that it's a moral standpoint as well, and a rightful moral standpoint, to give someone the feeling that maybe, oh, God's on my side because I want to protect women and their right to have predominance over their body so that they can not be forced into situations that they wouldn't rather be in.
That's right. And in this culture
Yeah.
today, you know, the singer-songwriters, the young pop artists probably have way more influence over anyone in the under 18 years of age than a pastor does, unfortunately. And, you know, we've seen that even in the Catholic Church, that something like 50% of that age group now say they believe in God, but the majority of Americans are in decline in their church going. A little bit of an upturn during post-COVID, because obviously people were afraid for their lives. But I'd much rather look at somebody like a Tim Tebow, who's in the pop culture as well, who has his faith on his sleeve. He's willing to say he is a believer in Jesus. He does believe that he rose on the third day, and he will do everything in his life to glorify that, versus what Taylor was doing, which was basically trying to play to the Christian Tennessee voter to unseat a sitting senator named Marsha Blackburn for cheap political gains. And that's gross. And that is not going to sit well when judgment comes, in my humble opinion. But, you know, we've had this in Hollywood since the beginning. You know, I'm old enough to remember when Jack Nicholson was the hottest actor in town, constantly, you know, had terrible lifestyle, whatnot, but he's pro-life. And he's said it very, very succinctly. He says, I'm positively against it. I don't have the right to any other view, talking about abortion. So a principled stand, a person who does believe that abortion is murder and murder is a sin, wouldn't do what Taylor Swift did. And I don't know. She doesn't go to my church, but my guess is that was told what to say and said it for a political point, not because whether she really does believe that or not. We'll never know, but that's my take on it, is she was just playing the cultural game, the cultural game.
And that's the big difference, isn't it? She uses her perspective on religion to advance her political perspective.
She did.
Instead of
Yeah.
what I think we would otherwise do, which is use our political perspectives to be an extension of our religious convictions. I mean, that's a very important differentiation, because it tells what your priorities are. And if someone is voting or speaking politically on a basis of their religious convictions, that's a wild difference than saying the Bible says what I wanted to say in order to advance my influence in this particular demographic or this particular cause or area. Kind of like what we've talked about in the past, the notion of loving one another means the freedom to kill babies. You know, that
No.
stuff like that just doesn't add up.
And Nancy Pelosi was, you know, the Speaker of the House for 2 terms, and her own bishop in San Francisco would not give her communion because of her pro-life stance. And the same thing with Joe Biden, current president of the United States, most powerful man in the world. You know, they say the leader of the free world, not able to do that. So there is a difference between, you know, rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar and thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Taylor Swift is getting pretty dangerously close to the Christian nationalist line. I mean, I do find it funny, though, because honestly, I think that Taylor Swift is part of the camp that is quick to feign outrage against, you know, the boogeyman that they label Christian nationalism. And that's a term all itself that we don't have time to flush out tonight. But it is ironic how, or maybe not even ironic, I should just say it's frustrating, the hypocrisy of Taylor Swift can use her Christian faith to push her certain political beliefs, but if the average American citizen does it, they get slandered and labeled as something, that they may not be, which is Christian nationalists or someone who, puts their country before their faith or whatever the case may be. And that can be frustrating to witness sometimes. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, have you seen some of the signs that these, we'll just call them activist far left people have been flying in front of, say, the Supreme Court when Roe versus Wade was overturned, or at any given cultural event like Oklahoma city, whatever their capital, they were protesting the LGBTQ anti-drag queen, I guess, laws that they were about to pass. These are some demonic, satanic slogans, let's just say. And I don't know if these people take that home and actually believe what they're saying, but to say things like, I eat babies, or happy to be a baby killer, or, long live Margaret Sanger, or whatever the case may be. There's something going on there as a cult. I used that facetiously a second ago, but it really does seem to be like the cult of Planned Parenthood, or the cult of Moloch giving babies over for sacrifice, more so than just it's a political healthcare thing. It's a woman's right to choose. It's healthcare. It's maternal care. Something else is going on that's really, I think, touched some of these people demonically. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the vision I have.
Yeah.
The argument has changed a lot too. It used to be an argument of autonomy,
Safe, legal, rare.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the most convincing thing, even as recent as maybe a year ago, people would say that the real one way or the other in the conversation was when you determined that life started in an autonomous individual. And once it was firmly established medically that conception is the beginning of life, it seems like the opposition or the pro-choice activists and that side of the camp kind of stopped caring about that argument then. It's like they lost the argument, therefore I don't care about killing babies. It's the mother's more important than the baby, and that's the argument now. So it's not it is not something that can be measured by argumentation or successful rhetoric or even apologetics to any notion. I think it's a deep-seated conviction for or against righteousness. And what you're saying, Steve, is it's right. There's some really evil things going on, and the deep end of that. I don't think every single person who allows themselves to say that they are pro-choice is demonic, but they certainly are under the influence of those that are. And that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, and look, we just saw the Emmys with Sam Smith, and we just saw the Super Bowl with Rihanna and these, red dress. I'm wearing a red shirt, but the different logo than what they're trying to pitch. But the whole just demonic, cultural, satanic worshiping themes are so prevalent and so now in your face. And it went from what used to be, it's just a clump of cells, to then they came out with the 4D printer or 4D sonograms and said, actually there is a human being inside there. Maybe we have to leave that to being, it's just the woman's right. And even Ocasio-Cortez, who I talked about earlier, had made an economic argument as to why this should be done. And so the thing that bothers me the most, especially when I see an artist like Taylor Swift come out and use it, is that Planned Parenthood is a business. It makes a lot of money. It got $80 billion worth of COVID funds actually just to stay in business, because states like Tennessee kicked them out completely. Texas, the statistics showed 99% decline in abortions in that state. It's a big state. So financially speaking, they are still a vibrant political force. They give money to politicians all the time, probably both sides of the aisle, but mostly one over the other. And so for her to come out and say something that is pro, let's just say, corporate, interest just reminds me and other folks that she's doing this because probably a PR agent or her manager said, if you want to be relevant with the kiddos, if you want to keep your career going and not get canceled, like plenty have who've come out the other direction, this is what you got to say. No matter what her heart and her relationship is with Christianity and Jesus and God is, she may be, don't know, but she may be doing this for monetary purposes, like keeping her career relevant, because that did come out before her last album. And so she did, obviously wasn't going to come out on the other side and make everybody turn her off. And then Walmart's not going to carry her CDs. Nobody buys CDs anymore, but you know what I'm saying. So I do have to look for an ulterior motive when I hear somebody like that say something like that and then be contradictory between killing a child and Christian beliefs. It just seems a little cynical to me.
Yeah. And, when I think of the celebrities endorsing abortion and kind of what you were saying, Michael, about how the argument changed, there are celebrities that have just, within the last few months talked about how they regret that they didn't get the opportunity to have an abortion, and just like weird stuff like that. Like, we went from safe, legal, rare to where most people in America, and this is still where most people are at, polling has shown this, most people are somewhere in line with basically the idea that it should be safe, legal, and rare if you are pro-choice at all. And it's always a tragedy that it has to happen, with the exception of this new, like Steve was saying, kind of this cultish behavior of people that are saying, like, shout your abortion is the term that they're using. Like, it's this weird, I mean, they're no longer pro-choice, they are pro-abortion. And that is an important distinction that I think needs to be made, because honestly, the average person that's even, a more traditional liberal of 20 years ago that's pro-choice, they believed, yeah, we shouldn't let the government be involved in this decision, but it's a tragedy that it has to happen, but we still believe that people should have this autonomy. And that's not where the Democratic platform is anymore. But a lot of people haven't recognized that distinction. And I think that that's a huge shift that's happened, that most people by the polling are not okay with being proud to have an abortion. That's a giant distinction from, it's a bummer that it has to happen, but we still want that autonomy. Like, that's,
and they don't realize they are actually pro-abortion industry, which was created by Margaret Sanger, who was a staunch racist who wanted to basically eliminate the African-American race in the United States. Hitler used a lot of her writings, and actually I think had her as his guest in Germany, to advance the exact same mission, only he had a different demographic that he was after. So when you hear a young girl like a Taylor Swift, maybe not really knowing what she's talking about, but she's actually feeding an industry that is based on death and murder for profit. They have been caught and fined for fetal tissue sales, which is a federal offense against the law. So it's a criminal organization. You got to just wonder, is there a moral belief? Would she go out and have an abortion if she was married and ready to do this? Or is she just saying something out loud that's okay for other people, which makes her a hypocrite? I'm speculating. Like I said, I don't know her soul. I'd love to interview and ask her more in depth about her opinions on these things. But I think that was a commercial for her culturalism, as well as playing into the hands of Planned Parenthood, who sets up the majority of their clinics in underprivileged and Black neighborhoods. So it's still going on to this day. They don't even realize that the party that has basically locked up the Black vote for the last 50 years actually works against their interests and survival, life and death sometimes. If they did know that, I think they might change their mind.
Yeah, I agree.